We're going to be looking at our experience with Newgen, with OmniFlow, and where we are. As with any company, we had the same challenges that you had or may have. We had, I'm going to say, a workflow tool that did some automation, but it had long outgrown its usefulness. Substantially, we had a lot of manual processes, a lot of people. You couldn't tell what was happening in the branch, in the centralized area. The way things were done, this branch would do it one way, another branch would do it another way, and then you were totally confused as to what was happening. The communications to customer depended on the person that you were dealing with. We didn't have the ability to enforce standards, and so you had a lot of variations. Tracking, getting KPIs to manage performance, that was a big problem because of the paper-based nature of the environment, or turnaround time, reports, all of those created significant challenges for us in our loans processing. We started in about 2010 to look at transforming NCB, and I think it was a good thing for the organization. So what we had was buy-in from all major stakeholders. One of the things I want to note, even though they are at the bottom, is that the customer became the central point of this transformation. That's something you should note. So the rest of us mentioned their senior managers, board of directors are incidental to the process. So we had to make sure our focus was on what the customer experience would be at the end of the day. But of course, all the others are required so they can pay the bills. We needed to make sure that in our own strategic direction, we had some clearly defined goals at an organizational level, and you'll see some of them up there. The customer-friendly nature of what we wanted to do, given the competitors we have in Jamaica, and I see some here. The compliance with regulatory guidelines, and customers are always saying it's just too difficult to work with NCB, right? So we had to take those into consideration. As I said, when we started our transformation, we had set a 5-year aspiration. These are the things we wanted to accomplish. We looked at multiple vendors, and we eventually came down to a choice of 2, one being Newgen, the other a much bigger company that we did significant business with in another area. But when we looked at Newgen, and I'll say it publicly because as Ashish knows, if they do well, I'll say good things. If they do poorly, I'll say the bad things just the same, right? Is that we found them very easy and flexible to work with. That was one of the things that caught our attention. They were willing to do a POC because even though we had workflow tools, we had never worked with a BPM type application before. They said, okay, we'll do the POC. And they said they would do it, I think it was at minimal cost or free of cost, because he said, and he came to my office Friday afternoon at 5:30 when I should have been home with my family, so you can understand, right? But he made the point that they were so confident in the tool that they were prepared to do the POC. So I could take that forward. Since we have started that journey, there are quite a few things we have done. We started with retail loans, which was fairly simple. They did some workflows for us, and the person started to see the benefit of having that tool. And you'll notice that today it says there are several other applications, modules, workflows that we're working on. So what we actually did, we bought OmniFlow as a base, and we've built all these modules on or around it. So retail loans, that's live. Corporate is going in later this year. Collections is going later this month. We're in pilot with Zappin. FATCA goes live in June. And I gather that they'll soon be signing off on a new one, KYE. So there are quite a few things that we're going along with Newgen. I'll touch a little on the Center of Excellence later on, but the partnership has enabled us to blend our short-term goals with our long-term aspirations and to bridge that gap. Now, I spoke about the partnership approach that we have with Newgen. Now, one of the things that we have done is that we have now put in what we call an innovation center, where we're starting to look at what are some of the things that are happening out there in technology from a financial services perspective. And Newgen is one of the companies that they have been working with us in that area. Now, once we had done our analysis around Newgen, the risk analysis, we didn't know this company from India, we didn't know these persons, they were new to Jamaica, and the business case went to the board and they were convinced that we should do it. We found that there was easy alignment between our business objectives and the technology that they were bringing in. We are able to call, manage Ashish and say, we have a business idea, tell me what you can do. Can you do it? Do you have the product? Yes, we have done it for a bank elsewhere, or we don't have it. Give me the requirements. Let me look at it. So they are involved with you from the conception of the idea. The Center of Excellence is something that has worked for us. We started with the approach that we would own the source code, would do all our building, and would get rid of them. Unfortunately, the pace of our transformation was far greater than our guys internally could handle at the time. So we had to go back to them quietly and say, can you help us out? So we actually have a team that is dedicated to our needs at Newgen. So a lot of the things that we do, we just hand it off to them. They come, they do the analysis, they work it through, and then they deliver the finished product for us. In terms of BPM as a success, well, you'll notice that Bob is beside me because he's one of our key business partners from the business side. And the fact that I'm able to get their support when we go to speak about BPM Newgen speaks to the fact that the business already believes that there's value. And that's a big thing. But when you look at things like the dashboard for decision making, the straight-through processing, looking at integration with all our applications, it's just there. You don't have to look far to see the benefits that you get. As I said earlier, it's key to get them involved in the process early, and you just have to make a decision and go. Because we sometimes wonder, is the investment worth it? And I do the flip and say, can you survive without it? And looking back since 2010, when we started the transformation, I'm saying if we had not made that decision, then we would not have been in a position to react to some of the fast changes that we're seeing today. So I can get something up and running very quickly. You need to do your assessment. What is it that you need internally, not just in terms of money, because that's just one side, but your own staff members. Do they have the capacity, the capability to go on this journey with you, right? Because sometimes you get in the middle and you suddenly realize that you don't have the organizational capacity to deal with the change. And as I said, Newgen, they have proven to be very easy to work with, good partner, or probably I should put it the other way. They have found NCB to be a perfect partner, so it's easy for them. Right? Some of the key benefits that you'll see there, the turnaround time, that is something that has improved. Some of those we don't have the stats behind it, so these are things we expect we'll be able to track, because if we can't track it empirically, we wouldn't put it in here. We have been able to standardize around certain practices, enforce rules, conditions, so it takes out the variability that you'd have had before that. We're able to have data in multiple applications. We can standardize, we can pull, we integrate. The efficiency of the process, that's clear, no longer these multiple manual systems, but everything can be accessed through a single portal. The reports, we have them. We have the reports that come natively in the system. We also have some we have customized with their assistance. And of course, the overall process optimization that we have benefited from with the Newgen solution.
All right. So let me provide some context before I get into some specifics around zapping. And if I was to describe two imperatives in respect of the relationship with NCB and Newgen, If I use two words, it would be responsiveness and agility. And let me step back a little and lay the context for you. National Commercial Bank Jamaica Limited is the largest commercial bank in Jamaica by assets. We have 4.3 billion US in assets and 1.7 billion US in equity. And between the period 2002, post when we had the government intervening in the 90s, it was taken over in 2002, it was privatized. And we had a major shareholder who, was Jamaican, Canadian. He was born in Jamaica. And so we set about to transform the operations of National Commercial Bank post government ownership. Between 2002 to about 2012, we had double-digit compounded annual growth rates. However, something happened in 2012, the profit started to slow. And so whereas in previous years, we had reached in excess of 120 million US thereabouts in terms of profits, somewhere about 2012, that dropped to about somewhere in the region of about 85 million US thereabouts. And so at that point in time, we sat down to examine our strategic imperatives over the next 3 to 5 years at that point in time. We set our sights on maintaining not only our position as a dominant bank in Jamaica, but we also set some Caribbean aspirations. And we looked at what it would take for us to be top 5 in 5 years in the Caribbean. We realized that we had a fairly steep, or some steep hurdles to scale. And so we realized that we had to transform the business. So we set about on what we call the transformation journey. And realized that a transformation in our business model was required in order to guarantee or sustain future growth and success. And so we set about looking to deploy all the levers of transformation. So whether it's process, business model, and organization. And over that period of time, we set out looking at various areas. So there was, initially, we had for about 2 years what we call a sales and service effectiveness to improve our penetration, our product penetration. Even within our own client base, it was very low. And so we set ourselves some hurdles to not only further penetrate our own client segments across all products and services, but also to take a disproportionate share of the market space. And so we set out, looking to increase sales and service effectiveness with the customer in mind, of course. Then we set about the second wave of that was what I would call, we call that a credit journey, where we look to redefine the bank's risk appetite. So we looked at policy. Then we started to look at the risk adjudication tools. So we made significant investments in building out tools for credit adjudication. And then we also, as a part of that credit journey, started to look at processes. And if you talk about processes, we have 37 locations, probably 2,400 plus employees, and we had multiples of that in terms of processes. I believe there was a point in time when, in terms of applications, we had over 140 applications, and they didn't speak to each other coherently. And so we set out, as a third wave post-credit journey, or simultaneously, concurrently, some parts of it, in what we call the lean transformation, where we focus specifically on process footprint. So we looked at all the processes, we looked at how we were organized, so we looked at literally transforming the business model. And some of the urgings that I spoke to you earlier when I said that we saw a slowdown in profit growth were driven by changing regulations, post the financial crisis, the global financial crisis, and the attendant effects on our business. plus the consumer and the consumer behavior and the changes in the consumer. So round about that time, when we looked at the transformation journey in front of us, it looked insurmountable. But we have a managing director whose favorite motto is that what we have are not problems but insurmountable opportunities. And so there's a particular phrase or a particular saying which I think is attributed to Jeff Bezos of Amazon, which says traditional business models are built around change and trying to figure out what is going to change, and then you build a business model around it. But he posited that one thing we should do is to try to examine what is not going to change and then build a business model around it. That's easier said than done. And so what are some of the things which he has said are not going to change? It is that the customers are going to want a product or service. They're going to want it faster, they're going to want it cheaper, and they're going to want it anytime and any place. So as we looked at the various areas which we were trying to transform, we recognized that at the end of the day, the customer was the business, and that what we were looking to drive through this transformation was the business growth. And Janelle said something in her presentation, and I wrote it down, because if you notice, as I said, we sought to deploy all layers, the levers of transformation that we thought. So we looked at the sales and service effectiveness, we looked at credit journey, because we're a bank, and so what we're looking to do is to extend credit to customers. And we looked at processes. And really and truly, at the end of the day, we are doing all of this to drive growth. And so what Janet said about it is the real-time orchestration of tasks and interaction, which struck me, because we could do a lot of work in all of these areas, but then they need to interact, and we need to orchestrate that. So the product zapping, for me, encapsulates all of these pieces that we're trying to accomplish. So if I looked at zapping, so I think I spoke much about this in terms of the change. But our goals are the transformation, the areas across which we expect to transform are employee engagement. So we're looking at empowered employees. So we're looking at processes around which our employees should become engaged. We're looking also at efficiency and productivity, so which is the reduction of non-value contributing activities, streamlined workflows, and adoption of some best practices. On the operational risk component, we're looking at the culture of compliance and the transparency which a product such as Zappin brings to us. And we're looking to ensure that we appropriately deploy our resources. And of course, we're looking to ensure that we have the adaptability or the agility and the responsiveness as an organization ourselves. And so any vendor, any product that we're looking at must contain these attributes, which we have, as I've said, all of these components across which we're transforming, you will see components of these being encapsulated in Zappin. And last but not least is the enhanced customer experience. And so, just to tell you a little about Zappin, we expect that from it, increased productivity hours, as the need to scan KYC documents will be eliminated. The images are captured in real time using tablets, and the information is uploaded remotely to backend systems. So literally what we have done is taken the OmniFlow platform with the logic engine, and on top of that we are building out some workflows. And how did I spoken earlier about collections, corporate, Zappin is just one of those sets of workflows which we are employing. It allows us easy validation of customers' creditworthiness. So at an instant, I mean, once you're logged in, you put in that unique identifier, which is the TRN or the tax registration number. In our case, we can use that to call certain services from our core systems to scan certain databases to tell at that point in time whether the customer is creditworthy or not, or should be excluded for whatever reason. That also plugs in to the risk adjudication tools, which we had said we had built out as a part of the credit journey. So if you see the integration from front to back of the solution, we use that to validate the accuracy of data. And that cuts out a lot of data entry because we have many areas of data entry within the organization, multiple layers of data entry, and not just data entry, but also verification. But notwithstanding all of that, we still had significant amount of rework and errors. So we expect that will eliminate that. It also allows the customer with the tablet in their hand to verify the data entered by the sales agent on the spot and to sign off on the application. That results in increased closures with much reduced turnaround times, because applications can be completed on spot. And as I had said before, we're not doing all of this just for fun. We're looking to drive growth. And there's also the customer experience as well and reduce turnaround time, because we want to ensure that at the end of the day, we extend the credit to as much of our credit-worthy customers as possible in a rapid, in a manner. So the turnaround time is also important for us. And again, the environment is of such that, we need to extend the credit in a risk-adjudicated way faster than the competition. There's also the being able to track by the sales agent. So this is employee empowerment and engagement, being able to see in real time the status of the applications. And through the various reporting methods, they are empowered on the spot. So this is just a snapshot of how we're organized in terms of the customer. So at this point in time, we have deployed the application for loans, merchants, and credit cards. And the sales staff, which is currently being deployed, are the sales officers. We have direct sales agents, we have branch sales agents, and we have some agents who are specific to some of the credit card services.